Greetings, true believers, and by true believers, I mean people who like the work of Access Games and sweary. This is D4. My name is Cam Shea, and with me is Tristan Ogilvie.
Hello.
And I've reviewed D4. Well, this part of D4. It's an episodic game.
Yep.
This is the first part. As you can see, there's a prologue and 2 episodes. And as we discussed this, I thought we'd hop into episode 1, which is kind of the first kind of setting proper, and then we can still jump back to the location that the prologue takes place in. So let's take a little look before we set the scene.
Cool.
I don't know about you, but I'm expecting this to be a very traditional experience. No surprises whatsoever.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, I assume that a lot of people watching this would know that this is from the mind of Sweary of Deadly Premonition fame.
Yep.
That game, I mean, I personally was an enormous fan of that game, despite the fact it had awful controls, awful graphics, awful combat.
Yep. Well, you'll be pleased to hear the graphics are really good in this one.
Okay.
The controls are still awful, which is just part and parcel of the experience. But yeah, like compared to we won't dwell on Deadly Premonition too much because we've got to assume that a lot of people haven't played it.
Yep.
But whereas that game was an open world kind of horror game, very Twin Peaks inspired, this is a much more contained thing. It's still a kind of a decent ensemble cast, but it's like a handful of settings that you kind of explore in a lot more detail. There's a lot more density to them,
Right.
and it's a whodunit as well though. But because it's kind of an episodic release, you have kind of like a wider mystery that where they lay the groundwork of it and give you a lot of teasers about what may be going on.
Right.
But then there's kind of like a mystery that's relatively self-contained in this prologue and 2 episodes.
Okay.
That is largely kind of resolved.
Is D4, like I know it stands for Dark Dreams something.
Die, dude.
Die. But D4, is it an inversion of 4D, i.e. time travel and that kind of stuff? Is there a time travel element, or am I?
There absolutely is.
Okay, cool.
So I'll just quickly set the scene a little bit. He's actually kind of talking through it at the moment. So this is David Young. This is the main protagonist. And he is a detective with he was a detective with the Boston Police Department. And that brings its own joys too, because he and his ex-partner both have these full-on Boston accents. And the game is very much set in Boston, and they talk about Boston.
Right.
And his partner has a fight with his wife, which is about Boston versus New York, and they talk about clam chowder, and it's like just typical kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's pretty bold, because the Boston accent's kind of interesting to begin with. So
Yeah,
I can't really judge it.
I'm not going to attempt to try and do it.
But it does kind of help. The accent actually does help give the game a very off-kilter, another kind of off-kilter element that I think works really well.
Cool.
So this is David Young. He was a detective with the Boston Police Department, but his wife was murdered. He was actually at the crime scene, which is actually in his house, but he lost his memories that night. He's got a bullet embedded in his head. Still.
Okay.
And he's gained this...
Is it like Homer Simpson with the crayon up his nose?
He's become a much better detective. So he lost his memories, but he's gained a save for his wife's final words, which were "look for D." So that's where the D is a very heavy theme in this game.
And bubblegum.
Look for D, but he's gained the ability to travel in time, or travel to the past, by using what they call mementos, which are basically like objects imbued with, some kind of power, and he can touch those and be transported back to a particular location.
Memento, an obvious nod to the film Memento, or is that just a coincidence? I mean,
I'd say that's a coincidence. Well, who knows, actually.
Well, who knows?
Yeah. So anyway, he's just jumped. He's used the memento to jump, and he's found himself on board a passenger plane.
Now, you're obviously playing this with the controller at the moment. The game was originally designed to be a pure Kinect experience, but I guess you might get into that a bit later. But it's obviously a good thing that they added controller.
Absolutely, absolutely. As a Kinect game. It's just frustrating and tiring and unreliable, and it's everything I dislike about Kinect summed up in a single game.
Yeah.
So I very quickly just switched to a controller, and while the controller controls are still kind of a little on the clunky side, so this is this little Peggy, his dead wife, or he's mistaking her for his dead wife. But the controls work well enough, and it's okay. And so here, there's this thing called a sync kind of rate, where I have to try and think like him and respond as he would, and I get kind of bait points. I'm just gonna be
I like
sleazy.
the bubble gum just.
Yeah. So 2% synchro rate,
Not
which
a
means
ghost.
that's absolutely not what he would have done.
Just
Right.
the most
But you can just
beautiful
ignore that
woman I've
whole
ever
mechanic.
seen.
So there's no consequence.
Unless you want to,
Please,
unless you
not
want
today.
to score 100% on everything. So it ties into the action sequences, it ties into the conversation, it ties into a whole bunch of
Okay.
things. Little Peggy. So the reason he's jumped to this plane is because he knows that this plane is going to be struck by lightning. But on the plane is a drug dealer who's being escorted by a U.S. Marshal who has information about a kingpin related to a drug that's implicated in his wife's death.
Right.
And so when the plane's struck by lightning, this guy just disappears into thin air.
Okay.
And so he's basically jumped to before the lightning strike to try and find out what this guy knows and try and work out how the hell he just disappears off a commercial airliner.
This is intriguing stuff.
Yeah, so that's kind of the setup. And it's kind of, it's a little bit like a point-and-click adventure game in that you have to kind of, yeah.
Did you do that or?
Yeah, so what you're seeing is like everything I kind of hover over already has kind of like information associated with it, right?
Right.
But you have to actually observe that. So you basically just hover over things, and yeah, he makes observations about it, and some of them are quite pithy and kind of entertaining, and you can also just push people, so you can push and interact.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very much kind of a locked box. You know, you've only got a small area that you can explore right now. So you know, you just kind of start looking, and you can switch to detective mode that kind of shows you the stuff that you can interact with in the environment. And
Push
you
him.
just. Let's hear his reaction.
Hey!
So this is the U.S. Marshal. This is the U.S. Marshal, and next to him is Zapatero, who's the drug dealer that you want to try and interrogate.
Okay.
So it's very much story-driven. Like, it's not like you know, there's any kind of real action beyond like a handful of kind of quick time sequences that are actually really entertaining. And it's not like there's like puzzles to solve or anything either, really.
Okay.
It's very much just driven by characters and dialogue and trying to kind of work out what's going on. And there's a bunch of kind of submissions that you can unlock that, yeah, like there can be like fetch quests, or like there's a flight attendant who gives you a 3-part quiz about aviation.
A quiz?
Yeah, like a quiz, like,
Okay.
hey, what are the plane's tires? You know, is it oxygen or is it nitrogen or is
Right.
it? It's
So it's
just
educational as well.
I've learned an awful lot. Yeah. All right, so I'm just gonna be.
Shut it, Baldy.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be horrible.
Only those with hair get
That's
to
not
speak.
David Young's style, though, as you can see from the synchro rate.
I just cheated off.
So it's actually quite an intriguing kind of
Shaving
story,
it
and
means you don't have
I
it.
found that
Stay out of this.
there's a lot of unnecessary elements that have been included. Like, Young has 3 separate resource meters to kind of pay attention to. His health, which is obvious. A vision meter, which basically means that you can't just keep switching to that detective mode all the time.
Right, okay.
Although you can just fill it up again by drinking something. And then there's a stamina meter. And basically every single thing you interact with in this world
right.
uses up stamina.
Every button press.
Yeah, but
Wow.
again, you can refill your stamina just by eating stuff, and it's never a problem to top it back up again. So it's just purely a system for a system's sake. And I think it's just kind of like a meta kind of commentary on game design and the need to kind of quantify things, and at least that's the way I choose to interpret it.
Yeah, that's good. Do you have to shave like Deadly
You
Premonition?
don't have to
Oh,
shave.
Okay,
No, you don't have to
slight
shave.
step backwards.
But like that whole observation thing means that there's a whole lot of kind of additional stuff to interact with. There's lots of kind of layers to interacting with the world and
Yeah.
working out what's going on. So let's just take an old lookery-doo.
That's a bacteria trap, that thing.
Yeah. So that is actually a clue. We probably shouldn't
Snow on the front, cherry blossoms on the back. That's a clue?
Yep.
Okay.
And it also triggers
Here we go.
the appearance of Duncan and Suki. And yeah, what I was going to kind of say before is that, like, yeah, there's these layers that are kind of unnecessary, and you just have to accept them. And as soon as you kind of just go, as soon as you embrace them, the game becomes a lot more enjoyable. Like, I spent the first hour or so worrying about what would happen if I ran out of stamina, and then I just stopped caring about it, and it just really wasn't ever a problem, and I just enjoyed the game a whole lot more as a result. And the other thing is, because the first time you're playing through, you're kind of working out how to interact with the world, and you actually miss quite a lot of stuff because you don't really necessarily understand the logic of what order to do things in and how to extract the most information and trigger certain submissions and stuff. It's actually better second time around as well.
Yeah, so I know you've played it through multiple times. What can this entire sequence play out differently, or is it just finding more things?
It's very linear in a broad sense, but there's a lot of kind of stuff to uncover within that and stuff that you can miss. And the key kind of thing is, like, replaying it with the framework of, you know, how things are going to play out and what's meaningful and what isn't. You just interpret the information you're given in a different way, and you get more out of it.
Cool.
And also by that time, like, Stockholm Syndrome has kicked in, and you just, like, you know, and I was just, like, just loving this world. Even though, like, the first time I'm like, oh, God, this is a bit of a stereotype, this kind of flamboyant fashion designer. But then you just kind of warm to it, you know. There's like a hysterical woman on the plane as well who's paranoid about it crashing, and the first time you meet her, you're like, oh, you know, hysterical woman, like, I don't know about that. But then you just kind of
go with it.
You just go with it, and it becomes really entertaining. And I mean, like, his submission involves you dressing up in an outfit that's basically the same as what he's wearing, which is just funny in and of itself as well. So I don't think we'll kind of stay on the plane for much longer because, you know, people can kind of play it and explore it for themselves. I'll just quickly show you the other kind of major setting, which is Young's apartment, where he, his ex-partner's just kind of hanging out. He's, you know, had a fight with his wife, so he's basically just there at the moment.
But that little transition there where the colour got sucked out of the plane, is it you sort of hurtling through space and time or something?
Oh, you know what I'd love to be able to show you, which I don't think is going to happen, is there's like a crime drama style, like, intro montage, like a TV show. And it's just so cheesy, and it's got like the US Marshal, like, looking over his sunglasses, and it's because and the music as well just gives this very quirky kind of cheesy lounge sax kind of vibe that works really well.
Does the music change up in a very abrupt kind of way? Like,
not as abrupt as in Deadly Premonition, but, you know, I mean, there's definitely kind of different styles that it kind of goes through. So yeah, this is his ex-partner, and there's a lot of stuff going on in here. You can change all their outfits and stuff for no reason. Again, there's just systems that are just there for no reason. This is his freeloading lodger, who's also his cat, which is established in kind of flashbacks to his life with his wife, their cat Amanda, and this is she's a cat, and so she appears in the plane as well, and you can buy food and drinks from her.
But wait. So she turns into a cat, or she was a cat previously?
She was a cat.
Right. Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of cool stuff that kind of.
Hey, Forrest Kaysen was a character.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. There's a lot of kind of interesting layers here, and that's what I actually like most about this game is that I was left with a lot of different little things, nuggets to kind of chew on. Oh. Classic Xbox.
We are live here, people.
So we'll just have a chat to him while we talk.
Got any more details on the
and there's a bunch of different ways the kind of wider case could potentially go, and some of them are quite dark. And I'm really intrigued to see if the team can actually deliver the kind of gut punch that I kind of hope they will, and do something that's impactful and kind of is a cool twist, because there's several twists that could potentially happen. So I'm really looking forward. I have no idea what the time frame is for when, for when the next set of episodes is released. So I thought this might be a good kind of place to end our little chat. I mean, we'll kind of save the action sequences for people to kind of see for themselves, and just some of the more kind of moment-to-moment stuff. Like you can kind of work that out. I just thought this kind of highlights the general kind of vibe of the game quite nicely. Because Case
4 stakes.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's got quite a hefty appetite. Does Forrest Gayson? Yeah, it's pretty entertaining. You know, you just have these kind of little weird kind of vignettes that just add to the charm of the game. And that's kind of why I like the unnecessary systems and stuff too. It just all adds kind of texture. Like I kind of feel like there's a lot of games that are just perfectly manicured.
Yeah, focus tested.
And then it's like, why would we include a stamina meter? That's unnecessary.
Yep.
Like you don't need that, but they just do it because they can. It
because.
just makes it more individual.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe this sequence is going to be longer than I thought it would be. But yeah, so there's kind of like a core kind of ensemble cast that you meet and chat with and find information out from. There's kind of, you know, secrets to discover. Again, like there's medals to find that are just not acknowledged at any point, and they're just there for stuff to collect. And there's, you know, magazines to read, and some of which kind of have a bearing on the case, and some of which are like, there's a lot of talk of ice hockey. For instance, like the history of the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
You know, I would say I know more about the Stanley Cup now, except that I skipped it. There's also like a tourist magazine that has like an impassioned kind of appeal to why you'd want to travel to Japan, and like why the culture's kind of interesting. And yeah, so it's a very kind of Western game, apart from that little kind of thing which I thought was quite cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Kayson's still on the Boston PD, so he kind of can help David Young out with, you know, bits and pieces, and that's how he kind of gets the mementos and things, because it's evidence that probably shouldn't be taken home.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, and as you can see, like it's really nicely presented. I mean, I guess that's kind of what's going to happen when you have like a much more contained, you know, set of environments. But yeah, I mean, think back to playing Deadly Premonition, just how shocking a lot of that looked. I mean, it looked
awful. Even the HD remake was awful.
The director's cut still looked like a late-gen PS2
if
game.
anything, it looked worse.
Yeah. So it's cool to kind of, you know, get the full quirky force of the Access Games experience, but with like a nice presentation. And, you know, I can't speak to the authenticity of the Boston accents, but I think the voice acting is really good. I really like the music. Yeah.
So in a nutshell, is it kind of like a David Cage game if he was even more insane and Japanese?
No, because there's no branching, you know, and there's
right.
And also, like, I mean, it's really worth pointing out that this is not something for you to solve. There's a lot to chew on when it ends, but like it's not really like you're putting the pieces together. Like, you know, there's this, hey, find the clues segments, and then you find them, and then he kind of announces what he's deduced based on that.
Right.
So this is not a game for kind of wannabe detectives. It's a game for people who just want to sink into like a unique world and interesting kind of characters, and just it's just different. It's a different experience, and yeah, I mean, like I enjoyed it, but you know, I can't give it any more than 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. That's still a good score. Sorry, didn't want to cut you off just then.
No, all good.
Well, yeah, that D4. Check it out. Better without Connect.
Better without Connect, as are most things in life. Sorry. I would say sorry, Connect fans, but who are they?
You'd just be screaming into the wind.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so so thanks for listening, and you know, I hope people also get the vibe this game's going for, because I really like it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It looks good to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Bye.
Bye.